I'm Matt Schroeder, Certified Financial Planner and Director of Financial Planning at Great Point Wealth Advisors, a fee-only registered investment advisory firm with offices in Boston and Danvers, Massachusetts. As always, I'm joined with my colleague, Brandon Parker. Brandon, welcome.
Thanks for having me today, Matt. Good to see you.
Yeah, you as well. Looking forward to another exciting episode. Today we're going to be talking about, for our November installation of this podcast, is your holiday budgets. And we'll call it holiday winter budgets. And we did something earlier in the year in April, kind of looking into your summertime. But, we're getting into that time of the year where, days start to look a little bit different. You've got different events popping up, different family commitments. Things are just starting to change a little bit. And it's important to kind of right about now take a step back and look at your, we'll call it your holiday budget, so that, you might decide to, figure out, what am I going to spend some money on? What am I going to try to save some money on? What are some things I've spent money on every year and I just keep doing it, but maybe I should not? Or what are some other things I should invest more in and kind of reallocate some of these funds? So, we kind of broke it down into 4 or 5 kind of big areas that kind of creep up, and we'll talk about each one, give you some tips and pointers, some things that, might just be your own mindset, or maybe some dialogue that you have with family to make things a little more effective for this holiday season. So let's jump right into it. First one, Brandon, was gifting. We talked about a little bit this offline. Holiday gifts. What advice do you have for people? What's your strategy?
Yeah, a lot of directions you can go with this, but ultimately it's trying to be intentional about what you end up doing and what you end up getting for the people you love around you, whether you have kids or whether you have, extended family and coworkers, and that bill can add up pretty quickly. So if you start with an idea of what you can realistically spend, that's a good place to kind of begin, and then you can think about how to break that out. I know personally my family's, I'm one of 5 kids, so we're getting to a point where, we're all adults. We don't really necessarily need stuff all the time. But we still want to get together and have a nice holiday. So we started doing kind of like a Secret Santa thing. So each person basically gifts to one other person, and you draw out a hat who you're going to give to. So instead of it being 10 gifts that you're giving across, to spouses and whatever, it ends up being one, and you can kind of do something a little bit nicer, but a little bit more, manageable from a budget standpoint too.
Yeah, and I think, there's different levels of gifting. So, we were talking more about kind of family gifts, or, if you're a young parent, how much we're going to spend on the kids. Some of the other things that tend to creep up are like workplaces. So do I have to get my coworker bought me a gift last year? Do I have to get them a gift this year? I'm in 4 or 5 different Yankee swaps. And, they're fun, and, but a lot of times they end up being, hey, we're just trading gift cards. So when you look at all the things, one exercise, and it might be hard to remember last holiday season, but just take a pad and paper and write down everything you remember giving or spending money on last year. So you went to, 3 different Yankee swaps, and each one had a $30 or $50 limit. You might have some nieces and nephews you bought gifts for, your parents, your grandparents, and you just try to put a dollar amount on there. And, I'm not trying to be Ebenezer Scrooge here. Obviously, giving gifts is fun. But if you kind of say, hey, I spent, $150 on Yankee swaps. I have 14 nieces and nephews. I've got 3 siblings. I've got parents. I've got grandparents. And if each gift is, 30 or 40 or $50, that starts to add up. And it could also be frustrating because, when you were kids, you took $20 to the mall, you might be able to find something. Now, if you're only spending $20 or $25 gift limit, you're usually buying stuff that nobody needs or wants. So obviously, so you kind of start to think about maybe how to get as creative as possible. But, so the first thing I would do is try to list out everything you remember spending last year, and then comparing that to say, what you might think is what you can afford to spend as your target budget. And once you realize that, I want to be involved in the holiday season, but how do I have this discussion with my family? It says, I love you, but I don't want to give you gifts anymore. I know we've done it with siblings, but have you ever had to have that discussion?
Yeah, a couple times, and usually my mom still gets everybody a gift anyway. But, it's just that ultimately, as you grow up, you don't really necessarily need all those gifts. And I live in a small condo. I don't have space for new stuff a lot of times. So it's you try to find the little kind of nice ways to say it without without saying. And it's easier to say I don't need anything. I just love to spend time with you or something. And then hopefully that kind of spreads as an idea for your holiday as well.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 tricks. We used to kind of buy for my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, like everyone, we would buy each other gifts, and basically we were just swapping. And so we would spend $100 on them, they'd spend $100 on us, and we basically said, why don't we do this? Why don't we each just buy a $50, whatever the denomination is, gift card to your favorite restaurant, or pick a restaurant the others might like. So we weren't having to buy sweaters and pick out sizes. We basically just picked one restaurant we thought the other couple would like to go to, and then that would be a night out for them, and they did the same thing for us. The other kind of thing that went from an awareness standpoint, so we have kids. At the time, my sister did not, and we realized that if she's buying for us, for me, my wife, my 3 kids, she's buying 5 gifts, but we're only buying 1 gift for her, which seemed kind of unfair. So at one point we said, don't get us anything. If you want to get some stuff for the kids, great. We're still going to get you a gift because it's kind of fair. Like, you're buying the 3 kids, we're buying you a gift. But it just, it took a couple of years to be like, man, this is a little bit putting a little stress on her, and she's trying to buy a lot more gifts than all of us. Why don't we just make her life a little bit easier? One less thing she has to worry about, one less thing she has to spend. So whether it's a formal process you go through and you have one-on-ones with each of your family members and let them know if they're on the gifting list or not on the gifting list, or it's just a general rule you start to work through, there's probably a couple hundred, maybe close to $1,000 of unnecessary gifts that you probably give each year that unfortunately sometimes you have cash and you have the available money to spend it, but usually it shows up in your January credit card bill that you're like, I got to pay this bill off. And now you're paying off that holiday gifting for the next couple months, which, is nothing, your family wouldn't want you to go into debt over buying them gifts. But you don't want to admit to anybody that you don't have enough money to buy all these gifts. So it's like this, a little bit of ego, a little bit of pride, a little bit of, family traditions. But part of, financial soundness and trying to get better is being aware of your situation, having the courage to just talk it with people. And ultimately, people want you to be in a better position no matter what. So it's not easy, but it's definitely one of those areas. The other thing we kind of said, okay, we've given gifts. We decided who we're going to give to, who we're not going to give to. We're going to bail out of that Yankee swap to save that $50, but we want to be in that one because those people are really fun, where they get some cool gifts. The next comes to travel. So if you happen to live next door to your family and it's just walking across the street, that's great. But a lot of people have moved for jobs or moved for life, and holidays require travel. Brandon, what's your travel budget or travel strategy, or you have any friends that are overspending to get places during the holidays?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you've ever traveled during the holidays, it's more expensive to begin with. And we used to go see my parents down in Florida for Christmas, so that was something we always had to budget for. You're flying during relatively busy times where the flights are a little more expensive and all that good stuff. So definitely happens anytime you travel around the holidays. It's not only more busy, but more expensive.
Yeah, and I think beyond just family travel, personal travel. So a lot of times, and we live in New England, which right now it's beautiful. In about 2 months, it's going to be gray, and that winter blues start to set in. And it's not uncommon, I'm going to say for younger individuals that maybe don't have kids' sports that they're not allowed to leave, but you start to get bored. You start to get frustrated. It's dark all the time, and you're like, wow, you say, I just got to get out of here. I got to go somewhere. And on the spur of a moment, you'll book a weekend or you'll go do something to kind of just treat yourself or get out, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing those things. But a lot of times when you do it last minute or retro or kind of reactively, you end up maybe not getting the best deal, or maybe splurging a little bit more than you had thought about. But now's the right time to be thinking about, if you're the type of person that around February you start going stir crazy. Right now, maybe start looking for deals. Say, hey, look, I know I can get a weekend in Florida or a weekend in wherever in February. It's a little bit discounted right now. What if I, instead of buying those 3 gifts for myself or doing that, I'm gonna buy that trip now, not only did you get a little bit better deal on it, but you also have something to look forward to while you start getting that, you're feeling the cabin fever starting to set in. So travel is definitely, whether it's family travel, obviously we want to all be together, but, flights are getting more expensive, trains are getting more expensive, transportation is not easy. So it might be one from a budgeting standpoint, having that discussion about, hey, I can either come Thanksgiving or Christmas. I can't come both, or maybe we go to you this year, you come to me next year. Just to kind of break things up a little bit and make sure everyone's aware of the increased costs. Beyond just the airfare tickets, there's Ubers, there's you tend to eat out more when you travel. So, all these things are things you're probably going to end up doing. But what you don't want to be doing is being caught by surprise or regretting them because, I never thought it was going to cost this money, or I wouldn't have done it if. But so now's the time to kind of sit down, look out and say, okay, I know I have money or I don't have money. And if I don't have money, I have to have some of these tougher discussions. If I do have money, but I want to keep some of it for myself, maybe it's still worth having some of these, tougher decisions that I have to make. So you've given gifts, you've traveled a little bit. Entertainment is one that always tends to pop up. Hey, let's get together. We haven't seen each other. Let's get together for a holiday meal, a New Year's kickoff. We're going to be all these types of things. And we've talked about budgeting in the past, but they tend to be jam-packed into the holiday season. Everyone's got, reunions, people are coming back, family, hey, why don't we meet out here? And there's no easy solution to say, hey, I'm not going to spend time with people, or I can't go out and entertain. But, Brandon, are you seeing any, tricks or tips that people are kind of using to at least be aware of it, or maybe try to, enjoy themselves, but also do it on a budget?
Yeah. One of them is just kind of either hosting people at your house. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, do you want to meet up for, a beer, or you want to go get some food together or something like that, you can always offer to kind of do it at your place. And, maybe they bring something and then you cook something, and next thing you know, you can you have that nice meal and still some time together. So there's always kind of those little options. Then I think, another thing is like, it's similar to the work stuff we talked about earlier. You get pulled into a lot of these after work events and things like that. Those might even be a little bit easier to say no to than somebody that's a good friend of yours. So how you prioritize what you do end up going out to spend, and, how you do end up going out to eat and all that good stuff is a good way to kind of manage the number a little bit more.
Right. And you know your friends, the ones that tend to, hey, if we're going to go out, they're going to buy a couple bottles of wine and then expect to split the bill. You have others that, that don't. So it sounds like you're not going to choose to not hang out with the ones that like to spend or have a better time. But you might say, hey, we're going to eat dinner here. Why don't we just meet up for a drink afterwards? Or why don't we meet up, midday or whatever it may be. So there's situations you put yourself in, that might create anxiety, frustration, concern about money. You don't necessarily, like I said, you don't want to not see people. You just want to be aware of it. So the people and who they are. This way you could just be a little more proactive and think through it and say, well, I know if they overspend and they expect me to split the bill, I'm going to be pissed that I have to pay it. I'm going to smile and do it, and we'll do it again next year. Trying to just, be a little bit more, have a little more forward thinking, or be prepared for when that invitation comes, might help you save a few bucks. And then the last one is a philanthropy. So we get into the holidays. Everyone's got a good cause. Hey, you know what? Would you mind? A lot of the malls, a lot of the stores, they have these giving trees, which is basically, there's a tree, and you take a card, you buy a gift for a family in need, or a kid needs, a toy. My networking group does a toy drop. My Rotary does a toy drop. The Little League is doing a coat drive. So everyone's got something, and they're all very worthy causes. But it's hard to say no. So we're fortunate. We've got some money. We've been able to give some gifts. We're not hungry during the holidays. So I should give some money to these people. But I'm also sitting on a $3,000 credit card bill that I'm carrying over from the holidays or into the holidays already, and I know it's going to get worse. If I give another $100 in raffle tickets and this and that, I'm not getting that bill paid off any faster. So, philanthropy is a tough one. You want to be generous, but you also have to be aware that every dollar you give out, if you can't afford to be giving away your money, is going to probably cost you money further down the road. So, there's an organization here in Danvers that talks a lot about doing philanthropy effectively, and there's basically three things they always talk about. One is your treasure, and that's your money. So charities need treasure; they need money, so you can make a monetary donation. They also talk about your talent and your time. So if you know your treasure is limited, you can also give time and/or talent. And example, Brandon, you played some golf in your lifetime. What would be an example of donating talent to a charity?
Yeah, so we actually had a couple over the summer. We helped out with the North Shore Y and able to help them a little bit with the tournament, and then I kind of sat out there and hit golf shots for people, and it helped raise money for the cause, right? So that was great. Didn't cost me anything, not that was the primary reason we did it, but it was a way that we were able to kind of have a fun activity that helped draw more resources to good cause. So things like that. Obviously, many other skill sets out there that are very much needed, and even just time is a big one, as you said. So it might be as simple as a soup kitchen or helping serve food to homeless, or there's all kinds of different causes you can go help out with that aren't necessarily money.
Yeah. So if someone say, "Can you make a donation?" Say, it's not a great time, but I'd be happy to, help with social media, look at your website, whatever, maybe make some connections or connect people that could be better donors. So, there's a lot of things that are going to come up in your holiday budget. As we talked about all these monthly episodes, a lot of it is just being as proactive as possible and trying to kind of think about what's ahead of you. Everyone's going to make mistakes. You're going to probably make 30 to 40% of your financial decisions will be wrong. But if you can make 60 to 70% of your financial decisions right, you'll probably be 80% ahead of everybody else. I know that's a lot of percentages. I feel like a little bit of Yogi Berra there, but 50% of the time I'm 90% right. I know I am. But like I said, holidays are a stressful time beyond just money. There's family dynamics, there's expectations, work changes, all this type of stuff that are happening. You just want to, take about a half hour and do a little bit of thought exercise. Look at what you gave last year, what important causes are, coming up that you're going to want to be involved with, places you're going to want to visit, people you're going to want to see. And then, just maybe put some numbers next to it and say, okay, well, if I want to do everything I want to do, it's going to cost me $2,600. My checking account currently has $1,100 in it, and I'm not getting a bonus from work until March. So what do I do? And we kind of know the answer is probably do less of the things on the list, or maybe get a part-time job during the holiday season to make some extra money. Those are not popular suggestions, but that's the way you could make it work. So if you don't want to either take an extra job or spend less, you are resigning yourself to building up credit card debt and then spending half of next year to pay it off, which, as a financial advisor, I would tell you is probably the wrong decision. But at least you made the decision. So if that's the decision you make, go for it. If you decide to cut out a few gifts, great. If you decide to work part-time, great. But as long as you feel like you're in control of that decision, that's really what, financial planning and financial intelligence and financial education is all about. So, Brandon, any final words or closing tips?
Just, add kind of the idea with a lot of these exercises is building a good habit. So it's not just in the moment that it's benefiting you by, getting on top of your budget for this season. It's a reusable skill that's going to help you, in the long term. So every time you're a little bit more intentional about what you spend on, and frankly, how you spend your time as well, those are the things that really pay off over the, course of a long career and, throughout your life. So definitely, I know it's a little bit of a pain to sit down and think through things deeply, but it's such a powerful tool kind of in your kit over time.
Right. And to his point about building good habits, if you're making the list, I tend to do it on a piece of paper and then I throw the list out, and the next year I make the list again. But using notes or using some type of technology that will keep that list, and then maybe once a year you just update that list, or you remember, hey, November 1st, Matt said to make a list or go do those things, that could be your trigger point. So, but yeah, hopefully you got a few ideas. Hopefully we didn't alienate any of your family members, and you can prioritize who you like most. I'll let you off the hook. You don't have to send me any gifts. We don't need any of the things there. So that's one less thing on your list. But appreciate everyone watching and listening, and hopefully you got a couple good takeaways from this. And until next time, I'm Matt Schroeder.